Hi everyone, welcome to Relatively Sane. I'm gonna sing the intro again. See, when I sing like that, I feel like I do sound good. I mean, sometimes I do give myself credit and I see things that are good within myself. Oh God, I really, honestly, I am so sick of myself. I am so sick of being home with myself and it's just been very, very difficult. I mean, I know it has for a lot of you. It really has. I am trying to eat well. I am trying to do things to take care of myself, and it's not easy. It's not. And the good thing is when I eat a lot of shit, I don't feel good the next day. And I mean shit. I don't mean like cookies and chips and stuff like that. I mean actual shit. No, I'm joking. I wouldn't, if you said to me, Jessica, I'll give you $1 million if you eat this shit, I would say I'd rather do comedy on the street with a bucket topless than eat duty. And duty, as I've said before, I don't know if any of you have heard this. Probably some of you have if you've seen my stand-up. Duty is a very Jewish, it's very Jewish for the word shit or poop. I have to make a duty. Like my grandmother, I've told the story before, but before we'd get into her car, even if we were going a mile away to the diner, she would say to my sister and I, do either one of you have to make a duty before we get to the diner? I don't want you to make a duty in my new Cadillac. Please, for God's sake, don't make a duty. So that's the word that we use. And it's kind of funny. I'm going to Google that because I have nothing to do anyway. I don't work anymore. I don't do anything. I mean, I do this podcast and I do some cameos and then the rest of the day I play with Frozen dolls with my daughter. And that's tough. I mean, I'm really, like, I've been talking about this a lot too. Being upbeat with your kids during this time is not easy. You know, she's like, Mama, can you be the happy jellyfish? And I'm like, hey, yeah, I'm a happy jellyfish. Like, I don't, how do you act? I'm doing it. I mean, what am I going to do? Be like, hey, like, I can't be depressed or angry when I'm playing a doll. Does that make sense? Like, I can't be Barbie and be like, I want to cut myself with my 4.5-year-old. Maybe I should just start talking real with her and start doing that and see how she reacts. She would get it. Isabella would get it. She'd be like, Mama, why are you saying these things? She is hilarious. I said, let me go get the keys to my car. And she goes, Mama, it's not your car. It's our car. How cute is that? And it's not true. It's my fucking car. I pay the bills. It's my car. I have to put gas in it. I was just going to say I have to fix it, but I've never even check the oil. I'm Jewish. We don't even, I can't even, whatever. I'm not going to try to say something funny just so that you guys like me. What really matters is that I like myself, and I have a long way to go. All right. Enjoy the podcast. I love you all. Thank you for your support. Please spread the word. Don't spread the virus. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Relatively Sane. I'm here with my good friend, Jeff Dye. Hi, Jeff.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
I know this is funny because I'll admit it. We just are doing this for a second time because
take two.
Yeah, this is take 786 because I looked down and I saw that my Zoom recorder wasn't moving and I realized the mic wasn't plugged in. This is not easy for me, all this tech shit.
And I was just explaining how the reason I usually don't like to do these is because we have to figure out all the tech part, and we have to set up a place in our house, and that's a good example of it right there. It's like, yeah, I don't know.
Well,
usually I could blame a producer for something like that.
Well, they do everything, but I'm really bad with this stuff, like really bad. It's a miracle the podcast is even getting out and the numbers are going up because I've done it. When I interviewed Rosie O'Donnell, I didn't even use the recorder and it wasn't even on. I fucking freaked out. But my manager recorded it through video, thank God.
Oh, thank
God. But I didn't even have the mic in my hand the whole time and didn't realize.
Wait, how do you know Rosie O'Donnell? You good pals with her?
I met her I did her first Our Family cruise with all the gay families. I mean, and straight people. My mom went, a lot of my comedy friends went, actually. It was incredible.
Sounds awesome.
The whole ship was allies and families, and but it was Sandra Bernhard, Margaret Cho, like all these people were on it, and I got to meet all of them and hang out with them.
And also, Margaret Cho was gay sometimes, whenever it was convenient.
I think she gay. No, she's fucking a man now.
But that's the thing. I once was at I don't know if she'd care for this story much, but Margaret.
I don't think she's listening to all my podcasts, so I wouldn't even worry about it.
And I love Margaret. I've worked with her. She's fantastic. But it was just really funny. I love teasing that subject about her because I was at like Laughing Skull in Atlanta, and she's basically having sex with the guy in the green room, and we're all just staying out of the green room because we're like, it's just like a little too intimate in there, we're all kind of shy comedians. And then she gets out on stage, and the first sentence she's like, I'm a lesbian, okay, and I've got some things to say. We were just kind of like, I think you're bisexual. I think that you should have led with I'm bisexual. I don't think.
Yeah, I think she's been with trans people too.
Yeah.
But I don't know the wording. I'm very bad. It's so funny because people think I know the wording. I'm all politically correct because I'm married to a woman. But I literally, I don't even know what that would be. I guess this is going to sound so stupid, but I guess if she was fooling around with a guy who transitioned from being a girl, she would be called straight. I mean, or bi.
Yeah, technically, yeah. Well, technically, yeah, because that's a man, right? That's
right.
Right. Yeah. So
right.
I don't know. We just thought it was kind of funny. I don't know. We didn't.
Well, that is hilarious.
Also, I'm not a big label guy, but just like it'd be funny if I was like hooking up with a dude, and then I come out and I'm like, "What's with these gays?"
And then you just like wipe the semen off your face. Yeah. You're like.
Me and my boyfriend are sick of these gays. It's enough's enough.
My boyfriend was in my ass the other day, and he was like, "You know what? Gay people suck."
These gays are ruining everything. Keep fucking me.
Were you brought up very were you brought up conservative?
People think that. So the way I grew up in Seattle, which is like wildly liberal.
So that's
And then my parents were very agnostic. And so the way I like to think of it, I've never like had this diagnosed by like a therapist or anything, but I think like if your dad is like the pastor of a church, you kind of like you want to smoke cigarettes and you want to rebel. And if your parents are just kind of like never around and heathens, and not heathens, but definitely like indifferent to whatever you do, I was kind of drawn to like the church kids because they were nice and we were poor, and the church kids were always doing stuff. They had food. They'd invite me to youth group. They'd be nice to me. And so I didn't really care about the church as much as like it was people that were just being kind. And so I was like, they were nice. I'll be what they. What do I have to say? Yeah, I believe in God. Yeah, I love Jesus. Like I would just say whatever because I wanted some sort of circle of acceptance.
Yeah.
But then it did change a lot of my perspectives on things. But I live by a strange code. I'm like very pro gay, very pro trans, very pro all those groups. I've been to 2 different women's marches. I'm on board with all those things. However, I love Jesus and I talk about it in my act, and I'm a big fan of his work, not the church necessarily, not the Bible necessarily, but you will never hear me say anything disrespectful about Jesus unless it's a joke or something. But I'm a big Jesus guy, and I'm a big gun guy. So there's a lot of camps. Like if you wanted to paint me on either side of the fence,
I know that's the problem now. I'm so glad you're talking about this, Jeff. Because it's so it really bothers me, labels. I mean, it always has. I hate being labeled. And like, I never thought of myself as a lesbian. Like, I've been with guys, and people assume because I'm married to a woman that I'm completely, like, you can't assume with people. And the fact that you love Jesus, but that doesn't mean that you go by everything the Bible says. Like, it's just it's getting worse, and especially now it's getting worse and worse and worse. And just because you believe in guns or believe in having a gun or like to go to a shooting range, I mean, I have to be honest with you, when I see someone going to a shooting range and stuff, I'm like, oh, they're a Trumper. Like, that's the way you think, which is fine, but it is the way that we think. It's like someone's...
I think what we were taught as kids, like, I mean, at least I was taught as a kid, and I took it as a real core truth, is like to not just like paint someone in a broad stroke. And I try to do that, but it would be unfair to be like, oh, Jessica is married to a woman, so I know all of her political beliefs.
I
Like, no,
know.
you don't.
That's what
She,
happens now, though. What do
which
we
is so
do about
stupid.
it?
It's such a stupid thing. And I think that happens a lot with race, or that happens a lot with sexuality, and even just like the muting of people are saying like, hey, you don't get to have an opinion about this because you're blank. So let's say straight white male, because that's something I actually know. Like they'll say, well, you can't talk about that because you're straight white male. It's like, well, my argument is really good, and I'm an ally, and I'm on board, and I have access to sympathy, and I have access to information, I have access to my friends. So what if I write down my argument, right, and I hand it to a black person? Is it okay if they read my argument? Like, is it just my skin? Is it a racial bias, or not
It
racial bias?
is.
It's a skin. It's
I mean,
discriminatory to white skin. So it's the
right.
same thing.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's hard for me. I was thinking about it the other day, and I'm like, honestly, most of my closest friends are straight white men. I mean,
Really?
I have some friends who are women, of course, and I have some friends who are gay guys, very close friends. But I'm friends with a lot of straight white guys and
Yeah.
straight black guys and whatever. It's like I know some of the best people I know with the biggest hearts. I mean, my brother and my stepbrothers are all the kindest, most loving people.
I think the best thing you can do is just love everyone. Like it's such a simple message, and that's Jesus' message. Just love everyone.
But
and people go, what? But what if they're trans? Like, I love them too.
But not that. But what if they're evil? Like, what if? Are you very forgiving?
Like, yeah. Well, I'm also very naive about that. So,
yeah.
It hasn't been put to the test. I think like if someone, murdered my sister or something, it would really put my faith to the test of like, can you still love that person? Because I talk about it on stage all the time, about how like, in my opinion, this is just me and this might be controversial, but I will never hate a racist. I'm never going to hate a bigot. I'm never going to hate a homophobe. I'm never going to hate any of these things, because that doesn't change them. I'm going to love on them, and I'm going to say you should reconsider your position, and you shouldn't be. They're just not going to ever become good if you hate on them.
Yeah.
I was once full of bias. I was once. We've all been ignorant to some. We weren't always this woke. We had to learn it.
Especially the people in their 20s and 30s. Yeah, I mean, it took me a minute to...
When I was a kid, I was very homophobic. And why? I didn't even know any gay people, but I was homophobic because my friends were. And they would use terms that we shouldn't use anymore. And they would say things. And I thought it was funny to make, like, aggressive gay jokes. But I thought that was okay because that was what was around me. And also because I didn't know any gay people, and because... it was ignorance and stupidity. Now, what if they would have just canceled me? Like, that kid's a no, like I had to learn. And I learned that that's a shitty way to live your life, and it's horrible to treat people that way. And I take that to like a larger scale. Like, I think that we can change people. Like we can teach them.
I think you're so right. And I wish that I didn't get so resentful towards people that I feel are not educated. Like, I don't mean by going to school. I mean, they're just so ignorant.
Well, have you ever heard that saying, like, nobody hates up close? Like, it's very rare. Like, so most...
No, what is that? I mean, I haven't heard that, but that's interesting.
It's the idea that, like, usually racism, even if it's a joke, like, you'll see it at the cellar. Like, if someone wants to make a remark that's, like, very edgy or racial or just mean, they'll kind of, like, look around first, right?
Oh, that's
you'll
interesting.
see, and it's because it lives in this, even they know what they're doing is wrong, and you're being a little piggy in the mud, and you're kind of enjoying how that feels. But that same person would never go up to someone and be like, you black piece of trash. They would never do that, because
right, of course, yeah.
One, they know it's wrong. Two, there comes conflict. And then three, it's not, I don't think that's really what they believe at their core. I think that it's just some sort of weird humanistic thing. But so like usually some of the worst racists will never admit they're racist. And think about the way people vote. People will say, like, I hate Trump this, I hate Trump that. And you'll be really shocked how many people show up and vote for it. I wish you had to vote publicly, to be fair. Why are you private about something like that? I'm pretty proud that I've never voted for Donald Trump, and I wouldn't be ashamed of that.
Now, if someone looked at you and didn't know you and just literally just saw you walk, they probably think that you were someone who would support Trump.
Because I love wrestling, and Donald Trump is in the Wrestling Hall of Fame. That's what you mean, right?
No, but I just noticed all those. It's so
Little
funny.
toys.
Yeah, it's so cute. Where are
Yeah,
you
they're.
in New York City?
No, I live in Los Angeles.
Oh, okay. I was
Yeah.
so used to seeing you. I was seeing you a bunch in
Yeah,
New York.
I'm always in New York. I think it's better comedy. I think it's great culture. I'm like a big New York at heart, but I lived there twice too. I love New York City, but
Yeah,
LA is where the TV's at, so that's why
I
I'm here.
know. How are what are you thinking about stand up? Like are you dying to do it? Have you been doing it on Zoom?
I've
Wh-
done two virtual shows and they've been fantastic, but not the
Really?
same. Not the
Yeah.
same though.
Do you do
Right?
it sitting down or have you stood up and actually did a show?
I set up my whole kitchen to look like a comedy. I have a curtain, I had a mic,
Wow.
I had a mic stand, I had everything. I had lighting, I had pretty much everything, even a bottle of whiskey with me. But I wanted to make it as close to stand up as it could. So when he brought me to the stage, I walked from the left to like I'm trying to make it seem like I was at a comedy
Yeah, I
club.
love that.
Yeah. But I've also been doing live shows. So 2 weekends ago I went to Utah. I was one of the first comics to do shows
Oh,
again.
right. I remember you saying that. How did that go? Tell because
Uh
I haven't talked about this on the podcast. No one's done it yet. There were a couple guys I spoke to that were gonna do it, but
it was awesome because and this is something I don't know if you've ever felt this. I can't speak to your experience, but in Hollywood especially, the vibe pre-COVID was like if they've never seen you before, it was kind of like a make me laugh, bitch. Like, come
yeah,
on. Like it was like and to be fair, I don't even think they wanted good comedians. They just wanted to see someone famous. They wanted to be able to go to work
yeah,
tomorrow and be like, I saw Chris D'Elia. I saw Gabriel Iglesias.
yeah.
They just want to brag about who they saw. And so what would happen is I'd get on stage. They gave me nothing at first. And then when I'd start to make them laugh, they were almost like, wow, he's hilarious and I've never even heard of him. It's
That
like, yeah,
happens to me all the time. It's of
there's so
course.
many funny people
Yeah,
that aren't famous or on television
yeah.
yet. So I would get very upset about that internally. Like I would go home and be like,
Mm-hmm.
why can't it just be like there's professions that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and then when I did the shows in Utah, that was gone. These people were so happy to have comedy. I mean, they were just like, thank you for doing. They acted like I was like a hero.
Oh.
They're like, oh, we've been at home for 2 months. My wife lost her job and we just don't know what we're gonna do, but we got free tickets to this and this just we really needed tonight. And they were also really generous with their laughter on every single joke. Some of my jokes weren't just like throwaway ideas and
Yeah.
it
No,
was fun.
that's so nice that you went back to that. Can you imagine if it was horrible?
Yeah. Well, I used that weekend as like a tester. So I got all these offers and I accepted that offer because I love the owner.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, if this goes well, I'll take some other offers because the money wasn't great.
Right,
And
because
then
they only half the crowd, right? Is it half the
yeah,
crowd?
one third.
So that place seats how many? 200,
Like
300?
380 or something like that. So what they did is
Okay.
they made it like 125 and the people had to sit 6 feet apart unless they were your party. So if it was your party, then you could have a party up to like 4 or 6 and they put like the tables and you had to have a mask to come in, a mask to leave. Everything was like sanitized. Each microphone had their own, or each comedian had their own microphone,
Mm-hmm.
which was cool. And then the microphones were sanitized in between shows, obviously. So they tried to make it as safe as possible, as safe as you could. But I don't even think people care about the virus anymore, right? I mean,
Oh
this
my
is,
God. Literally just had this conversation with my manager. He was like, what's going on with the virus? I'm like, I guess that's not, I don't know. Now everyone's just going crazy and it's all about the, protesting and riots. And like I said, I told Jeff before we started this, I don't know when this will come out, but right now, I mean, it's what's happening. And it's a lot. So I
yeah.
haven't even heard a lot of people.
During a pandemic.
I
That's the crazy
know,
thing.
I
I've never lived
know.
in a pandemic and we're doing both.
And
That's
in New
wild.
York, I mean, Jeff, this is, I've know half the people I know, because, there's people that listen to this from all over the world. Half the people I know in New York have gotten it. I mean, probably
Oh,
half, believe it
really?
or not. I know
I don't know anyone.
so many people who also didn't make it public. Like they may have lost their smell and taste, or they had, diarrhea for 2 weeks, whatever it is. I know so many people, and they were tested even if they didn't have symptoms and found out they have it or had it.
That's crazy. Yeah,
But
I don't know any people.
really,
Isn't that insane?
Even
I
in
haven't heard anyone.
LA.
I haven't heard
Wow.
anyone. Yeah.
Yeah,
Which is, you sit here and you go, well, I don't know anyone. So is it really that serious?
I
And then
know.
you read, like thousands of people in your, in the city have, so and in New York, it just looks scary. Like, I mean, the stuff I see is wild. So
It's
I can't,
wild.
I can't believe we're doing two at once. It's been interesting.
I don't even know how to explain it. I don't miss the whole process of like waiting to go on, the anxiety, thinking about it, my jokes, what am I going to talk? Like that's all. I feel like a little bit of a relief because it's a lot anxiety wise sometimes
I
for
would
me.
love to hear that. Maybe, and if you've already talked about it too much on your podcast, I'll just listen to old episodes if you can send me the links. But what you just said made me so happy. So I remember hearing a story about Philip Seymour Hoffman, rest in peace. But
Hmm.
he wrote this whole thing about how he's like, every time I get a role, I get so nervous. I
Hmm.
book the role and I think celebrate, but then almost immediately my stomach
Me
drops.
too.
I get diarrhea. And
Yeah.
I think to myself, how am I going to do this? How am I going to pull this off? Everyone's going to know I'm a fraud, blah, blah, blah. And I remember hearing that and going, but Philip Seymour Hoffman's one of the greatest actors ever. And he feels those real human emotions. You look so fearless up there. And you look like you
Yeah.
know everything you're going to say. And you
Yeah.
look like you have all the. So it's fascinating to me that you have anxiety before you go on stage.
And after. Like I
Really?
have a lot of anxiety around the whole thing.
Really?
When I'm up there, I'm not always, but I'm a lot of times relaxed. It's the most present I feel in my life. The most. Like I don't feel as present anywhere as I do on stage. I think I was getting really just bored with my own stuff and kind of phoning it in at times, which is so depressing because I love stand up and I just felt
Yeah.
like I was just doing my jokes and doing it to make $50, 100, and it was getting so. And now it's like I don't know how you feel. I'm curious to hear how you feel about it or what you did because I feel like I can't do a lot of my old stuff.
Oh,
I
I
can't
was worried
even
about
listen
that.
to it. I
So when I was doing the Zoom show, I was like so afraid I'd be rusty because I hadn't been on stage. And this is the longest break I've taken
Me
in the
too.
15 years I've been
Yeah.
in stand up. I've never taken a break this long.
Yeah.
And so I did the Zoom show, the first one, and I felt so rusty. And afterwards, I almost like debated on giving people their money back because I was like,
I know
"Jeebers, that
that's how
was."
I am. It yeah.
But then when I went to the shows live in Utah on stage and I grabbed the microphone, no rust whatsoever. I just felt like, oh, this is home. Like this
Yeah.
is the
I get
pocket.
it.
Like I felt. So that was totally different. But I would say like I thought I couldn't. So I'm pretty lazy. I'll always open with the same bit. Then I'll try new stuff or try all my thing. But I've been opening with the same bit for a headlining set for years. And the people
It's
that come and
not
see me,
lazy. It's like whatever. If it
I
works, it
just know
works.
it. I
Yeah.
know it's a good
Yeah.
starter. And I'm
Right.
always like, I just got back from Mexico. And then I do all these Mexico jokes
You're not
because they're
supposed
quick.
to do new stuff up front anyway.
Yeah.
You're not. It's not a
But people
good
come to
thing.
see me, like, they'll be like, oh, we saw you 3 months ago. We're so excited. We're bringing all these people. And they're like, wait, did you just get back from Mexico again? And I was like, no, 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 just I'm a
You
liar.
know what sometimes I say? I'm like, I was just in West Virginia 3 years ago.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Add that in there. That's great.
Yeah.
So I couldn't do little things like that. If they know that there's a virus and you're cooped up in your house, you're gonna have to be. I can't be
Yeah.
like, I went on a date last Friday. Like that's not.
Do
You
you
just
date a
switch
lot
those.
when there isn't a pandemic?
Yeah. I date during a pandemic. It's great.
Good for you. You know what?
People are available.
Yeah, are people being freaked like they're not well now it's probably better to go on a date, but before people were probably like we can't meet because I might get a virus.
I think people, and maybe again, this might just be Los Angeles. I think that people just roll that dice. They just really do. Cause like I don't know how many messages I've gotten from people who are like, are you really doing quarantine and like lockdown? And I'm like, yeah, I am doing that. And they're like, oh, well, if you want me to make you dinner, like I don't really have, they're bored. So the boredom
Oh,
overtakes
that's
their.
good. That's good that there's a lot of bored women. You can
Yeah, it's been great. No, I'm just kidding. But like the idea that like they're even saying like, hey, if you want, I'll just come hang out because I don't have anything to do. And in my mind, I'm like, aren't they afraid of? And I'm like, all right, whatever. I guess It's
I
tricky.
think it's different everywhere, and it really depends where you are and what you're doing. And are you like a relationship kind of guy, or would you like going out on? I hated dating always.
Oh, really? See,
Ugh.
I'm a tricky guy with that too, actually, because I'm just so good at being by myself
Yeah.
because that's all I've ever known. So that's what feels comfortable. So when
Hmm.
I get into something, I love people the way anyone else does, but the problem is that like I feel trapped. Like I feel like
Hmm.
oh no, now I'm stuck in this. And that's not fair for me to project on the new relationships what my old relationships were, but I would feel that with my old relationships. And once I finally broke out of it, me and Daniel Tosh actually had a good laugh about this, is that like um I've never broken up with a girl and not just felt like I'm free. Like
Yeah.
that's the feeling. Most
Yeah.
people break up and they feel heartbroken and they think, was this a mistake? What do I regret? I've only just felt like this is
Yeah.
I'm free.
It
So
wasn't the
I
right one. There's gonna be one where you don't feel that way. It might not be
yeah.
for 10 years. I'm just saying you probably will at some point, and have, because I feel like you need someone who's really like does things on their own. Like women don't realize that's what men want, even if it's just at first, just to hook them in.
Some
Someone needs to,
space.
yeah.
Yeah, well, there's something very attractive about independent women to me, which
Mm-hmm.
is probably why I like powerful women and empower. My sister was very independent, and so she was kind of like my mother figure, and so like there's also that. But I think there's nothing grosser to me than a dependent person, just in general,
I
a
know
man.
it's not an attractive thing. I tell a lot of my comic friends that are so desperate in the business. I'm like, I get it, we all feel it, but don't show it because it's not attractive.
Yeah. When
You know,
also I've talked to my guy friends, and there's definitely something wrong with them too, because I know a lot of guy friends that they're like, "Oh, I love it. I love that she needs me." And I was like, "Dude, you have a problem. Like
really.
you're a predator if you think that it's because in there I think, and they didn't say this out loud, but I think they're thinking, "Oh, well, I can get away with more. They're not going to let." Whereas like an independent woman should keep you
Oh,
you know she's only there because she wants to be. Isn't that good? Like that's what makes God great, is he lets you do
yes.
what you want. He
Yes.
doesn't hold you there like a captor.
But
He
you
says, "Hey,
have to
take
feel
me with
like they may slip away, and you got to, yeah, I'm telling you. I see there's all these books. I mean, I know people who've read these specific books recently, all about that. Don't not being needy with a guy. And I swear I have 3 friends who ended up in relationships from reading that book. I
I
don't
love that."
remember what
When
it's
also
called.
like if your man likes that you're needy, well, needy's a bad term because needy can be kind of cute and endearing, but if you like a if a man likes that you're dependent on him,
Hmm.
that is maybe not a guy you want to spend
I
any
know.
time with. That is to say that you should get some safe distance from a guy like that, because that's how agoraphobia sets in. That's how you once you get dependent, he starts acting like a jackass in 10 years or 5 years or
Yeah.
20 years. And then you think, well, I have to put up with it because we have a home together.
And
Where would I live?
children. Oh, forget it. You're
Yeah,
right.
you don't want to be put in that position. And that's what I think a lot of women are just great people, but they don't think about it from a more rational position,
Yeah,
I
they
guess I would
don't.
say.
I think people
Yeah.
are starting to be more rational now because of the rate of divorce and money stuff. You have to be careful who you get involved with and who you have kids with now, and if you have kids. I mean, it's changing. Everything's changing. It's
Yeah.
so interesting.
It's actually interesting that I'm so weird about relationships, and yet I listen to so many things about relationships, and I listen to like so many like lectures and TED Talks and things about like the psychology of
Why do you
relationships and
think you
stuff.
listen to that? I mean, I'm into that too, but not relationships. But I get it. I'll watch about certain things over and
I don't
over
know.
again.
I criticize Nikki for talking about relationships too much all the time. Nikki Glazer, I've been in love with her forever. We're friends, and
Yeah,
she and but
I love her too
just
dearly.
always
Yeah,
every time I go on her goddamn show, she's like, "So who you like?" It's always about a relationship, and I'm
I
like, "Dude, there
know.
must be some other shit we can talk about." But if you look at my iPad or what I listen to all the podcasts on, it just seems to come up, I guess, a bunch, and so that's why I listen to it. I don't know. Maybe it's something we can all identify with. I don't know.
Are your parents still together?
They are. They have been married for over 45 years.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Um, I love
but
that.
the idea is that like sometimes I'll say it in my act, I'll be like, my parents have been together for 47 years, and people will clap, and I go, isn't that weird? You just presumed they've been happily married for
That's
that long,
so
haven't you?
funny. Yeah, they don't even live in the same house, right? They
Yeah,
don't even.
they hate it. It's Stockholm syndrome at this point, and everyone's going, good for that. They don't even think about it. They just blindly go, that must be healthy. He must have had a great childhood. It's like, no, not really.
Thank you so much to all of my Patreon members for supporting the podcast.
All right, hold up. Could you take a little off the P's? You're hitting them too hard. Not action.
Thank you so much to all of my Patreon members for supporting the podcast.
Hold on. Now you're whispering Patreon. Is there a reason you're whispering?
Well, you said to take the p.
Somewhere in the middle.
Okay.
You ready? Action.
Thank you so much to all of my Patreon member.
Now you got to pause.
For those of you who don't know, Patreon members, is that okay?
It was perfect. Why'd you stop?
Oh, okay. Patreon members.
Cut. Let's go back to the beginning.
Thank you
And action.
Thank you so much to all my Patreon members for supporting the podcast. For those of you who don't know, Patreon members get early access to the podcast, ad-free episodes, and access to monthly live streams where we talk more about...
All right, let's take it back to the beginning. That was perfect. Do it exactly like that.
I just did it well, though,
Except
but why are you
finish it this
starting
time.
over? Thank you so much to all of my patron...
Cut. Why are you screaming?
Because I'm just trying to get through this.
Action.
Thank you so much to all of
Action.
Thank you so much to all of my Patreon members. For those of you who don't know, Patreon members get early access to the podcast.
Perfect. Keep going.
There's so many P's.
Keep going. Keep going.
Ad-free episodes.
You could cut this out, right?
For those of you who don't know, Patreon members get early access to the podcast, ad-free episodes, and access to monthly live streams where we talk more about being relatively sane.
Hold up. Did we agree on monthly live streams?
Yes, you told me I should do them because it'll get more members.
I don't know how to do a monthly live stream.
Don't you just talk in your phone?
We'll figure it out. Come on, let's get through this. We have to go. We should speed this up.
All right. Thank you so much to all my Patreon members for supporting this podcast. For those of you who don't know, Patreon members get early access to the podcast, ad-free episodes, and access to monthly live streams. We don't know what that is, but whatever, where we talk about being relatively sane. If you want to join our fantastic community that is so corny, go to patreon.com/Jessica Kirson. That's patreon.com/Jessica Kirson. That's Patreon.
I think you said patriot.com.
Go to patreon.com/Jessica Kirson. That's patreon.com/Jessica Kirson. Patreon.com/Jessica Kirson. Thanks again.
And cut. That's a wrap.
Ugh. I know. It's amazing how people think. So you grew up with one sister? That's just the two of you?
No, I grew up with two older sisters, and I give my older sister a lot of credit for raising me. She passed away, but she was this psycho. I mean, just lived wild, and it's because she was just figuring life out. You know, she was the oldest, and she liked older boys. She learned that, got her burned. She liked, she wanted to be the popular girl. That kind of backfired a little bit. So she was just, there's a Garth Brooks song. It's called like Standing Outside the Fire or whatever. And how that song reminds me of my sister because, I mean, my sister was very flawed. I don't want to make her sound like some saint or something, but I've never met a person who, if I needed $200 and she only had $200, I get that 200.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like she was just, I'm very generous with my money and things like that, but it's because I have a lot of money. When I was poor, I wasn't generous with my money.
Yeah, she was just a giving,
oh my God. And she would just like, there was never a time that I was in trouble that she wouldn't come pick me up or she wouldn't cover for me. Or she really blurred the lines of right and wrong to be a loyal, good person.
That's how my older sister has always been.
Oh, it's the best feeling.
Did she get into drugs and stuff or no?
She did a little. She dabbled in all of that kind of stuff. She also she went to jail for a little while for not real jail because she's she's a lady and not a threat to society. So they just like put her in a house.
Yeah,
it was like I visited her at prison. It was like this is barely prison.
Right, it's
you could
colonial.
You could just go.
Yeah, yeah.
You want to talk a disadvantage of being a man? Freaking prison is brutal.
Yeah.
And so she lived like this thing, and that made her not be able to be a lawyer, which she was studying to be, and so she just had so many things. But she was a fantastic human, and I give her a lot of credit for making me who who I am, because she was always like, just do it. I'm like, I want to be a stand-up. She's like, go do it. Like, I didn't even graduate high school. She's like, it's okay. You don't need it. Like, she was just so supportive.
Oh, that's so great. Yeah, I've had a lot of loss the past couple of years. I lost a stepsister, and yeah, and then my stepfather, and my father passed. I mean, I've talked about my father passed the second week of the pandemic, I think it was.
Oh my God,
yeah.
I'm so sorry. So it's fresh.
Yeah, he passed from cancer. It wasn't the virus, thank God. But anyway, it's just, how did you, well, I don't know when that happened with your sister, but how did it affect your art? Like, did it make it hard for you, or did it kind of make you more creative?
It didn't make me any more creative. It was 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't make me any more creative, but it bumped up my work ethic and drive by like 1,000.
Yep.
Because it gave me something to dive into.
Mm-hmm.
I've often said, like, a man is what he pours himself into, and man being mankind.
Yeah.
Human.
Don't worry, I don't get offended.
Man and women, and so, like, you need something to pour yourself into. And so some people pour themselves into their kids, or they pour themselves into whatever. And I just went all in on stand-up. Like, I was already doing it every night, but like, this became like, I wake up and I write, and I have like a regimented thing, and I need to write 20 tweets about what's trending that day. And it was a great distraction. But it also sort of felt, and this might sound cliche, but like she was going, good for him. Like, he's using it somehow, he's using it positively.
I get that so much, because I might have happened 3 weeks into the pandemic with my dad, but I went into work mode, exactly what you're saying. And people were like, oh my God, you're putting up so much content. I'm like, I don't know what else to do, because I'm either going to do that or I'm going to lay on the floor. Like, I can't, I literally said, I cannot handle this emotionally or physically. So I'm not going to be okay. I have a choice of either working more, or just action, or I'm not going to be able to move because I can't handle it. So I always think I think it's fascinating, because I think that I literally put it on a shelf with my dad and was just like, I'll deal with this later. And I really have not thought about it a lot at all. It's too much.
When I was mourning, like the first week, like when I was like mourning it, I've never lost anyone. I used to often brag about that. Like, oh, I've never lost anyone real close to me. And it's like, well, watch out, bub, because that's how life goes. It's going to happen. We're all going to lose someone we love. And so when it happened, I was kind of manic about it. Like, I would be laughing, like recalling my sister's memories, good memories of my sister, and looking at old pictures. And I would be like, I'm going to be so positive about this, like, let's remember how great she was. And then, like, a minute later, like, punching a wall, and like, crying, and like feeling sorry for myself. And so I was really in a bad way for that first week. So I think God or the source or the Tao or whatever you believe in kind of made me dive into my comedy. That's so that I had something positive or constructive.
I feel the exact same way. I mean, I'm very spiritual. I'm not religious, but I'm very spiritual and believe in a higher power. And I do think I'm being protected all the time. Like, I think that's just, it wasn't me putting it on the shelf. I think it's just nature. It's like, we're never given more than we can handle. Right. Yeah.
When also, like, I realized how many great people I have around me, which is interesting. Like, even guys like me and Crystalia, we're not like friends. That's not like a thing. We're not. I wouldn't even say we're friendly. And when my sister died, I got a text from him. I didn't even know he had my phone number. He goes, hey, it's Crystalia. I just want to say, man, I know, we don't talk every day or whatever, but I just heard about your sister. All the comics are talking about it. You're a good dude. And if you ever need anything, I just wanted to let you know, just reach out.
Isn't that beautiful? Like, I know. We're very, wow. I know. We have this family. Everyone, most people stick together. I've been thinking about that a lot with cops. It's like they don't turn on each other 99% of the time. So, like, when people are saying, well, cops should do this, I'm like, it's a brotherhood. It's a fraternity. I'm not saying it's okay or it's not okay. I'm just saying that comics are very similar to that, where we don't turn on each other a lot. And when I've seen people turn on other comics, like on Twitter, and I'm really shocked, because
it makes no sense.
I would never do that. I would never name names or do anything like that.
Right. Well, another thing is I always say that maybe this is why I love being a comedian so much, is we should always get a pass. Even if I make the most horrific, insensitive joke right now about what we're currently going through, I think the world should go, oh, he's going for a joke and he was bad at it. He sucked.
Yeah.
He really botched that joke. What a jackass. Or, hey, that was very tone deaf. Or, hey, he missed the mark. But if your intent is humor, that's a really good intention.
And love, meaning it's not coming from a hateful place. It's coming from a trying. See, that's how I feel. It's very hard. I went through a hard time because I do still do characters, but I used to do a ton of them. And then at some point, a couple of years ago, people started saying, I'm very offended by, and it was mostly white girls, like young white girls.
Sure.
Like, I'm very offended when you do a black voice. Or I'm like, I'm doing a character.
Yeah,
I'm not even making, in fact, she's making fun of a white person.
Yeah.
So why is that offending? Because you might be a racist. Like, if it's offending you, you need to go talk to a therapist. This has nothing to do with me.
They're being taught this. I really believe they're just being taught all these things.
I mean,
and it's all under a guise of like, look how good I am. If I get mad at this comedian for making that
yes,
I am a really great person for being sensitive to that. But if you need it's like you just said, if you need a safe place, you should see a therapist. That's a safe place. The world's not.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, how do you feel about, I think the PC culture is going to go away. So like, I don't think this is going to continue with the being triggered and all the other side. Do you?
I hope that I think in some places it has gone away. Like,
I mean,
you know,
it got
like if you
really
listen
heavy
to like
about everything we said. Everything was, yeah.
I hope it does. Because there's the thing, it won't affect my career if it does or does not, because I'm not like a real out there edgy guy. But also, I'm witnessing guys like Andrew Schultz, you know, like where he'll like say some pretty edgy things, or Tom Segura just went on this long rant about how wrestling fans.
I know. I was on his podcast right after he did it, and it was you have to listen to it. I mean, he asked me what I thought, and it was hysterical.
Well, I love Tom, and I love you, and I love wrestling, right? So I was very interested in this. But one thing I thought very fascinating, how is the uproar not that he said retarded over and over? How is that not addressed?
I noticed that too. I'm like, I can't believe that's what they're not upset about that.
Yeah,
I think I saw
like,
one comment about
that word. We've agreed that that's not. Those are defenseless. That's a defense. I mean, and I didn't want to make a big stink of it. I coach Special Olympics, and it's a very special thing to me. That's probably the worst thing you could do if you're in those circles. And people were mad that he made fun of Hulk Hogan. Like, it's like, no.
Well, because a lot of wrestling fans would say that word. Probably not all, but I definitely think one of them would even go. I mean, like, I think they would go by that as a name for one of the wrestlers.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'm asking, why does Tom Segura get a pass on the R word? Is a very interesting.
I don't know. That's interesting. I don't know why that would happen. I think people are literally just picking and choosing what upsets them. I just had a whole thing on Twitter where I wrote something and this girl went off on me, and I'm like, you're not even making sense. Like, she ended up apologizing to me because she realized what I was saying was the opposite. It's just some people, the extreme people, are looking for anything to be upset about. And you're right, like, to not be upset about that word, but be upset because
it's confusing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, I didn't care at all. I love wrestling. He can hate it. It's a drama. It's not the most sophisticated drama, but it's a drama.
Why do you think so many male comics love it? Who did I talk to about this on? I think I talked to Dan St. Germain about it on the podcast. But why do you think? Because a lot of guy friends of mine that are comics love it.
Yeah, well, I love it. And I think one, if you're friends with a lot of guys who are in their 30s, we grew up with it. So it's like our favorite show was just never canceled, you know? So like if your favorite show's been on since you were 4 and it's still, and the same characters, the same everything, you just continue to watch it. But then secondly, there's so much overlap with comedy and wrestling. So much overlap. They're kind of underpaid and underappreciated until they become giant stars.
Yeah.
Even the giant stars still interact and work in the same circles as the little ones. It's some sort of like you're being a bigger version of yourself. There's the road element. There's the
so
drinking and
true.
drugs
Yeah.
element, the travel. I mean, the trying to be the chase to be the big star. It's all in there. It's all the same shit.
Agents, manager. Yeah.
The girls, they call them ring rats. We call them groupies. There's just something, and then the staff. We're friends with all the staff of the comedy clubs, and they're friends with all the staff that's on the show, the producers. I don't know. That might be a reach, but there's a lot of overlap.
No, what you're saying makes so much sense. It really does now. I love that. So
mixed with we watch it, so we want to be friends with them. So we,
have you met a lot of pro wrestlers?
Yeah, Hulk Hogan came to my shows in Tampa, and it was amazing. And actually, I'll tell you a funny story about one. I'll tell you the two funny things. One, why I loved it so much was because I used to watch him when I was a little boy, and I used to like run around my house like trying to rip my shirts off because I was like, Hulk Hogan, he's America, he's like our mascot. And so to watch him watch what I do in the audience felt really great. But I don't know how much of my act you've seen. I'm not racial. I'm not.
No, I know that. I know.
Not the edgiest.
I love it.
I get off stage and I go in the green room and Hulk's back there, Terry Bollea. I'm with his daughter who's awesome and his new wife who's great. And he's just being so sweet. I love Hulk Hogan. He goes, you know what I liked, brother? I liked all that racial stuff you did. And I remember I just go, oh, thanks. There was no racial stuff.
Was it someone before you?
Maybe, but also I was just kind of like,
I know that happens all the time.
Is he just hearing something that he wants to? It was the weirdest thing.
That is so. Maybe he was listening to like Rush Limbaugh or something while you were performing.
Yeah, like earbuds in. But it's also like maybe he thought like, oh, that joke's got some racial undertones, and there's literally nothing racial about it.
Yeah,
just,
you don't do anything like that.
Oh, never. It's just funny. I don't know. I thought that was hilarious.
It is because people, they do that. That's happened to me. Like, I love that joke. And sometimes I don't even correct them because I just don't want to talk to them. Like, they'll be like, I love that joke you did about Disney World. And I'm like, yeah, I've had that joke forever. Like, I just don't.
Well, I think it's funny, too, is like how many people, like I'll make fun of a woman in my act, let's say. And then they'll take it 7 steps farther.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Every woman makes fun of men in their act. That's fine. And men make fun of girls because it's a fun target, you know? But like, and then afterwards they'll be like, yeah, these feminist bitches. And you're like, whoa, hey.
That happens to me all the time too. Like I'll do Jewish jokes and then they'll be like, yeah, you Jews, you fucking cheap Jews. And I'm like, no.
That's not what this was?
Yeah, that's not. And you're not allowed to do that.
I actually used to have I should say this on stage, and especially now with like what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
But like I used to always go like, obviously racism's the worst, right? That's the top of the hierarchy of wrongs, right? That'd be the highest. Racism's definitely the worst. But right under that is when you're a white guy and someone lumps you into their racism. That's pretty bad.
It's true.
When someone just looks at me and they goes, hey, come here, man. You know the problem with these black people? You're like, what do you? Why did you just lump me?
Does that happen to you a lot?
Oh, not a lot, but it's happened
to
in
me.
my life a lot.
Yeah, it's happened to me too.
Yeah.
It'll be like, of course, because it's a fucking chink or something. I'm like, what? You can't talk like that around me.
Now you have to defend someone else to someone you thought you could trust talking to. It used to happen at the Comedy Store. There's a guy named Tommy. He doesn't work there anymore, and that's why the Comedy Store is succeeding so well. But he used to be kind of a unapologetically racist white guy that like ran the door. And
that's like Dangerfield's, the guy Chario who just passed. He was the worst.
Oh, what? I've only had like 5 conversations with that dude ever. We barely knew each other. I bet if you asked him right now, do you know who Jeff Dye is? He'd be like, I've seen him. There would be like 5 different occasions where he would wait till it's just us. And then he'd be like, these black comics, they always joke about the same shit. And it's always
it's so
and I'm like,
amazing.
Why did you feel comfortable enough to just be a latent racist in my ear?
That's a funny bit. I really think you should talk about that because I could see them thinking that that's who you are.
Ugh. Well, I will talk about that. Well, but it's just so weird. Like now I'm stuck. Nobody even sees me defending the poor victim, but I have to just be like, hey man, don't talk to me like that. Now I can't work here, and that guy has no idea that I just defended him. It's just
I know. It's so crazy.
like there's temptation in me to just go, yep, they're the worst. Can I go on next? But like I don't want to do that either because I have to fight the good and evil.
I know you got to do the right thing, and you always would. Would you? So you were brought up that way, though. I would assume by your parents to be accepting of all people.
By Seattle more than my parents.
Oh, okay.
My parents were very hands off, and I got to give them a lot of credit. That's why I'm so independent. But it sucks when you're a little kid. You feel kind of neglected.
Mine were hands off too, and it's affected my life. We have a similar thing because I am very independent in a lot of ways, and I was alone all the time. And I kind of learned. I became who I was a lot from my friends. My friendships.
Well, but also that's where you learn to be funny, right?
Yeah.
And then
of
and
course.
also then you leaned on your friends for like the attention or those kind of things. And then when I was at home, it was a lot of like, look at me. Hey, look at me. And my parents were just like, ugh, this guy's always trying to get us. I'm like, I was just like, so that's very comedian behavior.
That happened to me too. I was always trying to get attention and trying to be fun. And I realized how you could win people over if you're funny.
Yeah, you're practicing it every single minute.
Do you probably deal with what my friends deal with that are women that are really good looking and go on stage? It's like we were talking about Nikki. I mean, when Nikki goes up, she just does this thing where you're not thinking, oh, she's just a pretty girl and she's fine. Like she has, thank God, has learned probably through so many experiences how to handle that, because I think you and I talked about that once at the Cellar. You must get that from some people the minute you go on stage, or comics that
not
just
a popular time. I feel it more with the comedians than the audience.
Yeah,
I guess a smile can go a long way with an audience, but there is especially with New York comics, and there's this idea that because I look the way I do, which by the way, if I was in like the modeling industry, I'd be the ugliest, gangliest, out of shape model in the world.
No,
you know
but no,
saying?
you will. I know what you're saying.
I'm a comedian, I'm all of a sudden, oh, he's so attractive. So then they immediately think like douche. But why do they think douche? Because I'm straight and I'm white. Mateo is gorgeous, and he dresses
stunning,
very sexual, and he's very fit. But no one goes, who's this douchebag? In fact, some of the jokes Mateo says could be considered a little aggressive, to a certain group. And but he gets kind of a pass because he's a gay guy. And so I would say my biggest struggle, if I have a struggle, I don't want to say I have a struggle.
That's so true, though, what you're saying.
There is some sort of struggle I deal with. It's that I'm always thinking, how do I show this person I'm not a douchebag? Because I'm not. And I don't want people to think that either, but I can tell a lot of people are thinking that.
Yeah, it's so interesting. They just assume. I mean, it's like they do it with, look what I said before. Most of my friends are straight guys, and they assume because I'm a woman married to another woman that I hate men.
Right,
which is literally the opposite of how I feel.
Yeah, I hate that. Well, you think about it like with a lot of guys, like I don't know a good example because it would be really rude to put a name on
I've seen that happen to you in New York. I've seen guys go, hey, look at you, pretty boy. They and they're jealous.
But it's also like it's weird. Like there's been plenty of good-looking people in comedy. Johnny Carson was handsome, and Bob, like a lot of the original guys. Bob Newhart was a good-looking guy, I think. I don't know.
Yeah, but I remember that happening to a lot of guys, like Pete Correale and Greg Giraldo. Like a lot of guys, they would bust on them at the Cellar.
Greg was busted out. I've only seen those guys when they get like they're revered, so I didn't know that
before he was revered, and even like during, there was times when he looked amazing, was very good looking, and a lawyer and blah blah blah. So
Bobby Kelly used to be like a very attractive guy. I saw the photos down there. He was like all slicked up and looking great.
I know. What's happened to everyone?
But also, Bobby's the type of guy who would bust a guy's balls for being good looking.
Of course.
But he used to be one of them.
I think most of the guys at the Cellar want Mateo, and that's why they don't make fun of him. So maybe you're just not giving off that vibe. If you wore like a tight pair of pants, like maybe you should really own it more.
I gotta like get in there and
Yeah.
really flirt with these boys.
Right. And just be like, hey, guys.
Yeah, that's it. If anyone, from now on, I'm gay. All right, that's gonna
Jeff,
help my
I
career.
think you should tell everyone you're gay because I think you honestly at this point would get a lot more work.
Actually, Tim Dillon is a good example of this, right? Like he's checking all the boxes.
He
and if
is checking all the boxes.
And if someone tries to go, hey, I don't like what he's saying, you're like, leave him alone, man. He's a homosexual.
Right. And if he could like lose a hand, would be the fucking contract. That's the signed contract. Or like had a horrible limp, like if something really bad happened.
But he's also a veteran of some. So you're like, how?
Like we find out, yeah, he went to Iraq.
That'd be a home run.
Yeah, he adopts 2 black children. I mean, there's so many things he could do that would make people more sensitive to him. He kills me.
Weird.
He kills me. He's so fearless.
He's so fearless. This guy, literally today, we're not supposed to, this I might timestamp it a little bit, but we're not supposed to be posting on social media for social pressure reasons. And Tim Dillon has posted like 1,000 posts an hour. Like he's just owning the internet because no one else is on it right
That's hysterical.
Yeah, he's just crushing it.
Well, I adore you. I'm so grateful you came on, and this is such a great conversation because it was different.
Thank you. I love it. Yeah, I can't wait to hang out next time I'm in New York. I don't got a lot of New York friends, so let's hang out.
Oh God, Jeff, anytime. As you notice, I barely ever sit with the comics. I mean, I love people, but I'm not in that whole.
I came and sat by you last time I saw you.
Yeah.
I was like, why is she sitting down there? And I was like, all right, I'll go sit down.
Because I don't sit. Because sometimes I'm like, I had a hard day and I can't deal with the busting.
Oh,
it's okay. I get it and I love it, but a lot of times I'm like, I'm not in the mood. I'm not in the mood to be made fun of and busted. And
I know I've said this about you, but I don't know if you've ever heard it, so maybe it'd be valuable for you to hear it. I enjoy listening to you. Like not just like comedically, but I was like, oh, she knows so much stuff about like politics, and like I find myself agreeing with her generally speaking, and almost all the time. So I was like, I heard that you were having a conversation. I think it was with Dan St. Germain, right? At the table when yeah. And I was like, I just want to go listen to them. I want to like hear what they're talking about. And I didn't even talk. I just was eating hummus and enjoying you guys talking. I was like, these are my debates. Like these are I don't need to go hear politicians. Like I want to hear what people I respect think about those politicians.
Yeah.
And there was a debate that night or something. And so I was just interested to sit down and listen to you.
Well, it was a good group because it's not, I can't deal with the constantly trying to think of something funny and being on and one up the next person. And it's just, I'm very real. I mean, that's probably why we get along because you are too. I mean, the guys that I'm the closest with are the most real. You can talk about anything.
Yeah.
I miss
and
that.
it's also like, I think that like some people, I had a late start for like a lot of learning things. And I think one thing that's good that's came out of that is what I might lack as a reader, I'm a very good listener. And if you really listen, you can catch a lot of nuggets of wisdom and stuff.
That's so true. It really is. That's very true. A lot of times I haven't listened, and I feel like the more I do, the more I'm learning. It's like just so true. Well,
wait, speaking of listening, what's that noise? Was there a little kid in the background?
Yes, that's one of the kids crying. Normally, I don't know who it is, but if I hear the cry, I could tell you exactly who it is. But it's a lot. It's a lot to hear that all day, and sometimes it's me crying. But
and then they have to come tend to you.
Yeah. Mama,
Mommy,
you okay?
Everything's fine.
Yeah. Why are you in the corner on the floor naked, flicking
You're
a
gonna
light?
be okay. Comedy's coming back. You can.
Well, tell everyone where they can reach you. What are your social media and podcasts? Anything?
I have a podcast called Jeff Dye's Friendship Podcast, and that's on all things comedy. And basically, I just have my friends on. And the rule is, I've got famous friends and I've got friends that aren't famous. And everybody's story should be heard. And some of my friends, drive Uber, but they've got just as good of stories as a Bert Kreischer or something like that. So I have them on. And then all my social medias are at Jeff Dye. And that's about it.
Yeah, and it's DYE, just for everyone. Yep. Yeah, and follow Jeff. He's amazing. And I can't wait to see you. And keep me posted on how it's going on the road.
I love you. Thanks so much. It was a pleasure.
Talk to you soon. Okay.
All right. Bye-bye, Jessica.
Bye.